Hey, this is Lou Mangello from WDW Radio, and you're listening to the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. Let's do this.
We continue all the way to episode 477 of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. In the last week, I have gone from Cincy to Cincy. And I'll tell you all about it. Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Fiveish Fangirls podcast. So, join us. Let's start off like the virtual table and see who joined us this week.
This is Brittany Bengal.
And this is Holly from Wisconsin.
And this is Rachel back in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
And nicely done for not repeating Sin City and Cincy.
Yeah.
I can see where that would be a little bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had quite the adventure. So.
Mm-hmm. And happy belated birthday to Chauncey.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I let him decide how he wanted to spend it, and he chose to spend it hanging in the hammock over a grill full of various meat.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. As long as you didn't have to cook said meat or grill said meat, you were gold.
Oh, he enjoyed it. He was the one doing the grilling, so.
Okay. Hey, even better.
Oh, all right. Well, I actually don't have a whole lot in the way of news.
I don't believe there was any 10 o'clock news, so that's a yay.
Yeah, it's always a good thing. I mean, New York Comic Con was over the weekend, but it seems like New York Comic Con has become more like toy announcements.
Yeah, which don't get me wrong, that's okay, because I mean, we've got other fandom Christmases that we can.
Yeah, most of our major fandoms already have been covered either at San Diego or D23 this year, so not a whole lot left. But yeah, you go check it out. You might find something interesting. Get you excited, put on your Christmas list. I don't know. So, but that being said, not from New York Comic Con, but elsewhere, the Big Finish app is back and it's been updated. And as we're recording this, unfortunately, the Big Finish website is down. So, they offered a free download to folks for the inconvenience of the app going kaput there for a while. But if you've not had a chance to go and download, and I don't know how good the free download is gonna be valid for, but I have not had a chance to download the free audio yet, and the website's down. Buddy.
Oh boy.
That's what I get for traveling. Hashtag first world problems. So it's all good. But the good news is if you liked using the Big Finish app, you can continue to do so. But also don't forget there's also a lot of audios available on Spotify for free as well. So there's that. We seem to temporarily have lost Holly.
Uh-oh.
Nope. Yeah, Zoom dropped her. Okay. Fine, Zoom. Be that way.
Oh boy.
Yep.
Love technology.
Mm-hmm.
But at times.
Yes. It's great when it works, but when it doesn't, dagnabbit. But that's okay. And really, the only thing we have is there's a new episode of Gold Standard. In the subscription feeds for the folks. talking about one of my favorite black and white films, Sunset Boulevard.
Ooh.
Very old Hollywood, poking fun at old, not poking fun, but an interesting take on the transition from the starting age of Hollywood when it was still silent pictures to moving on to the bigger, splashier talkies with color. It makes for an interesting look into really, I mean, it's noir, so there's intrigue and sex and murder and all that fun stuff. But it's an interesting look at really what it kind of was like for essentially the first generation of film stars. When you think about it, you had all these big names when Hollywood, the age of Hollywood first started, the late 20s and the 30s and the 40s. But what happens when they start to age? Even if they are able to make the transitions to talkies, we had never had film stars that started out like young and beautiful, and then a few decades later they're no longer young, and they might still be good looking but not the same good looking. So it's just fantastic acting. So very quotable.
Add it to my to watch list because I have not seen that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic movie. So there is that. Well, Holly fights with her Wi-Fi. Apparently, wasn't necessarily Zoom that kicked her out; it's her Wi-Fi. So we shall move on to feedback. First up, we've got some feedback from Shalane. First, she starts with a question. She says, "What cult movies do you girls have planned for the future?" That is a very loaded question. And also kind of difficult to answer because a movie being a cult movie is somewhat subjective, as we've discussed before. I mean, there are some obvious ones that we have already covered, like Princess Bride. That's obviously a big one. UHF is another big one, especially from Weird Al fan community. We just did The Last Starfighter, which is not as big as far as cult, but it has a steady following. So there's a number of films that we should do and probably will do at some point. We teased a little that there is one that's finally getting a sequel due out next year. So whenever that drops and we get a chance to see it, then we'll review it and the first film where we turn things up to 11. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And speaking of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, there's a certain group of funny guys from across the pond that we have yet to discuss any of their movies. So there's that.
Wait, we haven't? Wow.
Yeah, we have not. We have not discussed anything really Monty Python. Which, considering we've been doing this for over 10 years, is a little wild. When you think about it, there's some fandoms that we have like not touched upon or barely scratched the surface of. So yeah, it's it's a bit of a hard question to answer, Shalane, to be honest with you. Just because we'd have to kind of put our heads together and kind of decide what do we consider a cult movie to begin with. And then which ones
that could be a whole like episode on itself.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, really. What makes a cult film? What we think versus what the quote unquote experts think. Again, movies that have a steady following, but the audience is not very large. Yeah. So I guess just wait and see, Shalane. Sorry, I'm gonna have to keep you in suspense. And then she says, I think the only musical you girls have talked about this year is The Lion King, which is that true? Is that the only musical we've done this year? Now I'm questioning myself.
Yeah,
I mean, Shalane is usually pretty good at keeping up at what we do, so yeah, I guess so. She I think she knows. I mean, I guess technically A Hard Day's Night's not a musical because the guys are performing most of their music. So it's more like the music just happens to be, you're following a band, so there's going to be music. Yeah. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think she might be right. We have done some other, The Mummy. That's another kind of cult movie. 10 Things I Hate About You, kind of. Yeah, several Queen albums. Yeah, no, she's right. Okay.
Oh wow.
Good job, Shalane, on keeping track because you're better at it than we are. We've done a lot of music, but not necessarily musicals. Or stuff or things with musical interludes in them. Or dance interludes in some cases, like 13 going on 30. Don't worry, there's going to be more musicals coming. Maybe not. Well, probably this year still. We still got 2 months and some change.
Which is crazy.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, really. Halloween is next week. It's nuts. I forgot to mention something about Kimba the White Lion. I remember seeing commercials for it at the end of the Pokemon VHS tapes that my siblings and I used to watch, which would make sense considering Kimba the White Lion was a Japanese product. It says Pokemon. Back then, I thought it had something to do with the Lion King, hence the controversy that we discussed. Fun fact, I've actually never watched Kimba the White Lion, even though I'm more of a casual anime fan overall, which there's nothing wrong with that. I am not even a casual anime fan because I've been told more than once that is a rabbit hole I am not allowed to go down.
It's a crazy one. I say as I'm walking through a 25-year-old anime show.
Yeah.
And it's still going on.
So, yeah, there's nothing wrong with sometimes being a casual fan about things. Not everything has to be uber fandom.
It'll get really tiring if every fandom you're part of, you have to be uber fixated on.
Yes. Obviously, yeah. You'd like never be able to sleep or do anything. Sometimes some fandoms just grab you by the hand and say run. So what happened with me? That's all Shalane's feedback. But we did get some feedback from Aaron. He says, "Be prepared." I'm just assuming that he meant for that subject line to be sung. But I am not. I'm not a professional by any means. I'm not Jeremy Irons. He says, "Hello, my wonderful Fiveish hosts. There's not a lot more that can be said about The Lion King that hasn't already been said. The movie is one of my favorite animated movies and second only to Toy Story. Scar is my favorite Disney villain just because of how cunning he is and the majestic voice work from Jeremy Irons. I wasn't a big fan of the sequel, but Lion King 1.5 is hilarious for a few reasons. First, just as a movie, it has a lot of the humor the second was missing. Second, as much as he tries to say Lion King isn't Hamlet, it has a lot of similarities, and I feel like as the years went on, they decided to embrace that theory. So Lion King 1.5 is basically Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead, which is the story of Hamlet as told by the two titular characters, the same way the first movie is being told from Timon and Pumbaa's point of view. Take care, Aaron. I just see the name Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, and I just think of Leo and Max from the producers. So Bialystock and Bloom. So, it has a similar mouthful to it. Well, thank you, Shalane and Aaron, for your feedback. And Holly's internet's gone out. Oh no! That's horrible.
I had the same issue like 2 days ago. Like,
Uno momento, folks, while we try to get Holly back. Insert Jeopardy music here.
can you hear any background sounds for me?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Cool.
Because all I hear is the stuff coming through my window. One of our listeners is like, do this, push this button.
Right?
Just pull the lever, Crunk.
Wrong level.
Wrong la.
I'm trying to get my mom. Like, my mom's never seen that movie. I'm like, you used to watch it. You would love it.
Oh my, she never seen the best movie ever. As we have discussed. There's another cult movie.
I was gonna say, I think that's considered a cult movie.
Let's see, Holly, because I know she really wanted to hear my talk about my adventures. I'd hate for her to miss out. It is, folks. Technology at its finest. Well, I can do the setup here while Holly's trying to get back in without actually getting into nitty gritty. Yep. So, as y'all, our regular listeners and actual friends are likely aware that I turned 40 last year. Of course, as we're recording this, I am slightly under 4 months away from turning 42. So it's been a hot minute since I turned 40. And knowing that I was going to be turning 40, which nowadays is not that old comparatively, but it's still a milestone, new decade and all that fun stuff. So Chauncey was all like, okay, well, you're turning 40. What do you want to do? Because when I turned 30, I insisted on going to Disney World, which is exactly what happened. When I turned 35, I got a tattoo, pick one, on my back. So turning 40, I was like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I want to go to Vegas. I'd been to Vegas once before, way back in 2008. I'd gone with my mother. And then Chauncey had been in I'd have to ask him. It was probably like 2000, it was a couple year or two before that, I think. With his parents when one of his friends from high school got married out there. So they went out there for the wedding. So we had both been to Vegas with our respective families, but never together. And I wanted to go back because it's just, if you know anything about Vegas, when you think of Vegas, obviously you think of the Strip, all the neon and the big hotels and the lights and the sounds and the people, and that's exactly what it's like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Totally not really Chauncey's vibe, totally my vibe. He's like, amuse you, absolutely. We'll go to Vegas. I'm like, sweet. So Holly's reconnecting. Yay. Woo-hoo. Let's cross our fingers and cross our toes that she gets reconnected.
Okay.
Yay!
Can you hear me?
She's back. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Hopefully my data will not kick me out. That was the only thing I'm a little leery about. Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully not. So.
Yeah. So it wasn't my fault and it wasn't my router's fault. It's my provider's fault this time.
Yeah. So I was giving some background. I was trying to pad time, hopefully that you would make it back. So
yeah. And when they said fixed time of 8:30, I'm just like, oh.
Which I'm assuming that means 8:30 your time, which is like 2 hours from now. So
yeah, exactly. So I was like, trust me, I was trying.
Yeah.
Because Miles said, can't you reset the router? I'm like, that's not going to help.
Nope.
It's their end.
It's not us, it's the other end.
It's the other end.
Yep. So, anyway.
All right.
Long story short.
I'm back.
Yay. Oh. TLDR. I wanted to go to Vegas for my 40th birthday, celebrate my 40th birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And we kept trying to, fit it into the schedule. And it just was not happening. So, stuff kept happening, and with this, that, and the other thing, with Chauncey's work, and then I ended up unemployed late last year. We ended up going to Metallica instead, which ended up being very expensive, but totally worth it. Got to meet Metallica. So suffice to say, Vegas never happened last year. Coming around to this year, again, I am unemployed for essentially the first half of the year. So, which we were doing okay financially, but it's like, who knows when I'm going to get a job. So let's just put it on the back burner. And then once I have a job, then we can figure out when we could go. So I got this job, and is working for a public school system. And it turns out that we have a 2-week fall break in the middle of October. And Chauncey and I just look at each other like, let's try squeezing it there, because as Holly alluded to as we're recording this, yesterday was Chauncey's birthday, where he also turned 40. So I am now 41, but he is now 40. I have been 41 for a hot minute. So we're like, well, let's see if we can squeeze it in there. We're like, sweet. And then we realized we got a crap ton of airline miles that have not been used, that need to be used.
And
otherwise they'll never get used.
And I'm sure you were in the, hey, this is wide open, no blackouts, use them.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much. So Chauncey's like, see what you can do with the airline miles. I'm like, don't need to tell me twice. So that's exactly what so we ended up hashtag not a sponsor, but thank you, Southwest Rapid Rewards. We were able to not only cover our round trip flight to and from Las Vegas and Indianapolis, but we were also able to cover our hotel room for 3 days, 2 nights at the Venetian.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Way to go.
Yeah. yeah, other than like taxes and
Mhm.
other fees that
Right.
miles will not cover. Yeah, it pretty much was covered just with the airline miles. So that was fantastic.
So to quote the weakest link, you banked and you banked and you banked and it paid off.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, since we knew it was coming, we scrolled away every paycheck cash and stuff so we'd have money to pay for stuff. So we my first week, because it's a 2-week fall break, my first week was just at home, just chilling, laundry, that sort of thing. Taking a much needed breather. And then a week ago we kind of hit the ground running, flying out to Vegas in the morning, but thankfully with the time difference worked in our favor. And we got there and just took a lift from the airport to the Venetian, which, if you're not familiar, the Strip is very close to the airport. You can see the Strip from the airport. Last time, Chauncey and I went to San Francisco to see Metallica on our flight. Both flights out and back, we ended up having a layover in the Las Vegas airport. But the flight home, it ended up being a really long layover because our flight getting pushed back. So we ended up finding some chairs in a section of the airport where they weren't using any of the gates. And we just watched as the sun went down and the Las Vegas Strip, the lights started lighting up and it got more neon. So it's like you can see it from the airport, and it makes for a very nice view when flying to and from at nighttime as well. So yeah, so it was a really quick trip from the airport to the Strip. If you're staying on the Strip. And got to the Venetian, checked in, got our key, figured out our way to the room because they were very busy. Granted, the day we flew out, it was Indigenous Persons Day, so it was a holiday for a lot of people. And also Canadian Thanksgiving. So a lot of people traveling. But I heard one of the people working the front desk telling customer client next to us that they have the Venetian just by itself has over 7,000 hotel rooms just in that hotel. So you can imagine. It's a little busy, it's a little big. Thankfully Chauncey and I are not new to hotels, so we managed to figure out a way around pretty easily. Got in our hotel room, which was a king king suite because they only have suites. And it was sweet. It was a sweet suite. I mean, for as little time as we spent in it, I think it maybe was slightly overkill, but hey, for the birthday trip, why not go a little extravagant, especially when you're not necessarily, kind of technically paying for it out of pocket. But we had a view of kind of the Strip. We were overlooking the pools, I should say, because there are multiple swimming pools and hot tubs, which we never got to use because apparently in October the pool closes at 6. But it was a really nice room. Like I got video and pictures and stuff, so I'll be able to post stuff. But it was really nice. The bathroom was super nice. We had both a walk-in shower and a giant soaking tub, which getting into that tub that first night, oh lordy, that felt really good.
I can imagine.
His and her sings. The toilet was in its own little room with a door. There's a telephone right next to the toilet. Like,
Sweet.
you could call room service, I guess, while you're sitting there. Make use of your time, I guess. I don't know. So for the most part, our plan for this trip was to kind of wing it. Like, we had some things that we wanted to do, but we weren't like really scheduling ourselves because we wanted to be pretty flexible. We also knew that we also had a limited amount of time and wanted to try to cram in as much as possible without overdoing it. But one of our things that we absolutely knew we wanted to do was visit Omega Mart, which is a installation from Meow Wolf. If you know anything about Meow Wolf, if you don't know anything about Meow Wolf, look it up. Friend of the show, Jacob the Carpetbagger, he's been to several of the Meow Wolf installations. I can't begin to explain what a Meow Wolf experience is like. They've got different themes depending on which location you go to. The one in Vegas, it's Omega Mart, which is essentially a grocery store, but it's like if it's almost like if Disney met Fallout.
Mm-hmm.
Without it necessarily being too child friendly. Like, it's not necessarily like not child friendly, but it's also like it's not you'd have to kind of almost depend on your kid. Because I would say, like, one, you got to be prepared because it's very it can be very overstimulating if a lot of different noise and sounds bothers you. There are flashing lights. There are like fog slash smoke machines used in some spots. But the whole idea is this is Omega Mart, which was this grocery store that apparently the owner sold his soul to this cult to become uber successful, and then there's like aliens or something. I don't know. I can't even necessarily tell you what. There's a plot, but it is just, it's so like, it's very surreal is the best way to put it. So it's like, if Salvador Dali was aware, it was alive now, and could take advantage of all the technology that people can use nowadays, 3D printing and motion capture and all the different things, he would have a field day. Yeah. He would love this shit. But I just, yeah, like, go and look a video and you'll see what I mean. Like, it's really wild because, like, they want you to, like, go poking around stuff, pick up things, push buttons, look for hidden doors, which there are a lot of them, go in different directions. And it took a little bit to get used to the fact that, no, you're actually supposed to be like poking and prodding things. Cause at first I was like, I know I'm supposed to be like touching stuff, but part of me is like, I don't want to break anything. Like, you're not going to break anything. It's meant to be played with.
Okay to touch, instead of the Nemo, don't touch the boat.
Yeah. Touch the butt.
Touch the butt, yeah.
Touch the butt. But just be aware, at least, I haven't been to the other ones yet. But it's, I would say, because some of it is kind of creepy, I would say creepiness level slightly dialed back Stranger Things. So, like, if your kid can watch Stranger Things and can handle that, then they could probably handle this.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
So, that would be my 2 cents as not a parent. Oh, but yeah, I mean, and the thing is with this one, the Omega Mart is inside a larger area called Area 15. Yeah, like Area 51, except backwards. And where there are a number of different buildings. One was a distillery that was supposed to be the equivalent of like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but for alcohol. But unfortunately, I think it was a victim of the pandemic. So while signage and stuff is still up, it's not open, which really sucks because Chauncey and I were looking forward to that. Even pre-pandemic, when we first were toying with the idea of finally going to Vegas. Oh, and that's the other thing is Vegas has been on our list for a long time because Cirque du Soleil, for the longest time at the Mirage on the Strip, had a Beatles themed Cirque du Soleil show called Love.
Yeah.
Our
The soundtrack is freaking awesome.
Yeah, so it's psychedelic 60s Beatles extravaganza via Cirque du Soleil. I've got the soundtrack. I tried to go to it back in 2008 when I went with my mom, but we tried to get on the standby to get tickets and never happened because there was just not enough tickets to go around for the number of people who wanted to go. But I did end up buying stuff from the gift shop because duh. But we just I never got for years and years and years. It's like I want to get back to Vegas. I want to see the Beatles Cirque du Soleil show. I'm gonna get to Vegas, see the Beatles Cirque du Soleil show. Guess what closed earlier this year?
Oh,
the Beatles Cirque
no.
du Soleil show.
Not just the Beatles Cirque du Soleil show, the hotel itself. The
Oh,
Mirage
that's
got
right.
sold.
That's right.
All right.
Yes, the Mirage is now going to be a Hard Rock hotel. So no word from Cirque du Soleil on if Love will reopen or maybe move to another hotel, because that has happened when hotels have closed. Shows that have a strong enough popularity have moved. That being said, the Venetian is almost directly across from the Raj, so every time we went outside, it has like the giant signs on the side of the building, and you can tell since the hotel is closed and everything that they're not bothering with upkeep. So it's like the Beatles and their Sgt. Pepper outfits, but it's all faded and discolored. So every time I walked
Aw.
outside and saw John Paul, George, and Regal all faded, I'm like, yeah, I'm not bitter at all. Anyway, back to Meow Wolf. So Area 15, they have the Willy Wonka equivalent distillery, which is also closed. They've got like some VR stuff that you can do. There's a couple different buildings where they've got different like interactive things you can do. It just kind of depends on what you're into. And then the building that Omega Mart is in also contains some restaurants and like an arcade and some shopping. So we went in, it was just like neon like and flashing lights and all loud music and all this stuff. But we grabbed something to eat and then went into Omega Mart because your tickets are timed, so you have to pick a time to when you're going to show up. And we were in there for hours, just walking around and poking our heads through things and finding tunnels and crawling through them and finding doors and looking behind curtains and pushing buttons and all sorts of things and trying to follow along with the loose plot storyline happening. And it was just like, as long as you're not someone who gets overly stimulated easily, you could definitely spend like 2+ hours just wandering all over. There are add-ons that make it more interactive, But we didn't opt to pay the extra for that. Looking back now, I'm kind of like, oh, we probably should have, because there was some stuff where it's like, if we only we had the interactive thing to make this thing go, we may have gotten at least some more of the plot. But whatever, give us a reason to go back, I guess. But yeah, it's wild. Of course, there's a gift shop both inside the installation and a separate gift shop right next to it. And then the outside, just kind of walking around. There's the outside stuff on the outside probably changes depending on what like artists, I guess, have for them to put on display. Because there was like Area 15ified version of the Las Vegas sign again that made me think of Fallout. There was this vehicle that looked like it probably should have came out of Mad Max, but I think it's from the Army of the Dead experience that's in one of the other buildings. So yeah, it was just kind of wild. So we did that. And then we went back to the hotel, got cleaned up, and decided to get dinner. So we walked north on the strip, because the Venetian thankfully is like middle of the strip ish. So you could go either end, and you're not going to be walking for more than like 20 minutes ish, depending on crowds. So we walked north on the strip up to the Pepper Mill, which is really it's a Las Vegas institution. It's a diner that is open almost 24/7. And has been around since like the 70s, late 60s, early 70s. Like the Rat Pack would go there for late meals after shows. I mean, it's the inside definitely just screams like I am from a different decade. It's got the tables are like these Chauncey calls them mafia booths. Where it's like, you know, you're like you could sit in it and you're like a mob boss, you know, in the center. Makes you the center of attention. But they're
so
all
basically
like,
you're doing a Don Corleone Godfather.
Pretty much, except all the lamps, all the lighting fixtures above all the booths are stained glass with pink flamingos.
Ooh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and there's the restaurant, and then there's the lounge, which is separate. So if you just want to get like drinks, you can go over to the lounge, and they've got like sunken living rooms from like mid-mod houses with like fire pits and stuff, and all of it. That's carpeting everywhere. We just poked our head in there because we were so hungry. It's like, we need a booth. Give us a menu, please. The portions are huge. It is on the expensive side, but considering the amount of food you get, I think the price to food ratio is pretty comparable. I was concerned I wasn't actually gonna be able to eat everything that came on my plate. That was not a problem. I ate it all except for one sausage link. So Chauncey, on the other hand, ate his entire burger. They had this huge plate with a burger and curly fries, and the curly fries, you almost couldn't find the burger because the amount of curly fries that they had given him. So he took the curly fries with him and was eating cold curly fries for the next 3 days as a snack in our hotel room because there were just so many. But they serve breakfast, lunch, and dinner all day. So think Denny's, but like, again, turned up to 11.
Nice.
I got the French toast, which was so good. So good. Yeah, I tend to be a waffle or pancake person usually, but I decided to go with French toast because it sounded good. And that's probably some of the best French toast I have ever had in my entire life. Because it was the right amount. The thing with French toast is you gotta dredge it in the egg wash enough that it permeates through the bread.
Yep.
So that you don't end up with dry bread in the middle, but you don't want to soak it too much that the middle of your bread just becomes an eggy, soggy, like wet tissue thing.
Right. You want that nice balance with the custardy.
Right. Yes,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what they did. It was perfect.
Nice.
Oh, nice. Because
syrup and some powdered sugar.
That French toast can be hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And even more so if it's a stuffed French toast to boot.
Yeah. No, this wasn't. This was just regular French
Okay.
toast. And the thing is, you think of like diners and like places like Denny's and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you think it's probably going to maybe be a little on the greasy spoon side. No. No grease to be found.
Oh, nice.
Anywhere. Not with my food, not with Chauncey's burger or his fries. No grease. Which was probably why it made it easy to eat as much as we did. Because if you're consuming a lot of grease, it makes you feel gross.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now with the French toast, what kind of bread was it? Like a Texas style toast where it was nice and thick, or was it kind of on the regular thin side?
No, it was thick.
Ooh,
it was
sweet.
thick.
Even better.
Yeah. Yeah. And it came with eggs and bacon.
Oh, nice.
And sausage links.
Oh boy.
And so yeah.
You dined well, girl.
Yes. And like I said, I ate all of it except for one sausage link. So.
Wow. No, that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot about a breakfast.
Yeah. So. Me and Leslie, nope. BFFs. French BFFs forever. She and I, Pawnee actually existed. She and I would be at JJ's Waffles all the time. That let me breakfast. So yeah. So we walked back, crashed. Well, I took advantage of the giant soaking tub. And then we proceeded to crash. And then we were up early-ish Tuesday to grab food and take a lift to the arts district, which is north of the strip, and it's in between the strip and old Las Vegas, like Fremont Street, the Fremont Street area. So it's a neighborhood in between those two. Very much what you would think with, some place called the Arts District, independent restaurants, antique shops, vintage, whatever, stores. So first place we went was an antique mall, which was really wild, looking at vintage and or antiques in Las Vegas. They definitely have their own sources, unique sources for this kind of stuff. So like I don't know what happens to stuff when hotels close. I think it probably depends on the owners and or whoever's in charge, whether the stuff gets just like sold off to be used elsewhere, whether it goes to like auction, where like maybe or goes someplace like a warehouse where the public can buy some of it, or stuff like that. It's something I should find out. But there's just this antique store just had a little bit of everything, which was pretty cool. I took all pictures of sorts of stuff. I found, you heard of Velvet Elvis, which is usually a portrait of Elvis painted on a velvet canvas. I found Velvet Beetles.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And some of those velvet paintings, if done right, they are freaking awesome.
This one had a little bit of damage, but still, it was like I've never seen Velvet Beetles before, so. But it was pretty cool. We spent a couple of hour some change, I think, in there wandering around. It wasn't really big, but it was big enough to spend a decent amount of time. So then I was getting hungry again, because we didn't necessarily have breakfast per se. We had like, and he had coffee, and I had pastry and kombucha for breakfast. Um, so we're by then it was like, okay, walking around, get a little hungry again. I going into it, I was like, I made a list just looking at like Google Maps of like what's going to be in the areas that we think we're going to be in. I was like, I'm getting hungry and I know exactly where we're going. So we had to go a couple of blocks away, but it was I'm going to get the name incorrect and I don't want to butcher it. It is I don't have it written down. I thought I did. Okay. I've got pictures. Where's the name? Anyway, it's a hole in the wall kind of place, because it's a few blocks away, and on the street it's on, you could tell it's working on getting gentrified, but it's not quite there yet, but they're working on it. So but it was one of those, it's like, hey, when in Rome, let's eat someplace interesting. It's still I don't remember the name of it is, but it's a pasty restaurant is essentially what it is, if you know
Ooh,
what
nice.
like an English pasty is, which is
Uh-huh.
kind of like a calzone, but
Yep.
instead of it being like pizza crust, it's a lot lighter and flakier, so it's almost like a pizza crust met like a something flakier, like a croissant.
Yeah. Or like
Ooh.
the outside, like a turnover almost,
Yeah.
but a little bit
Yeah, but they're
a little
savory.
bit more held together. Yeah, more savory.
Yeah.
And it's usually got like ground meat, onions, and
Yeah.
potato.
Yeah. Traditionally, yeah,
Yep.
it's a meat and some vegetables, brown sauce of some sort.
Yep.
It's a very much an English state. It's Cornish. They're Cornish pasties. Which tells you everything you need to know about their origin. And obviously this being not actually in England or the UK, and it also being Vegas, where they like to experiment. They had traditional, but then they also and had some that maybe not necessarily scream traditional English, but they make sense. Like they had a couple that were like Indian, like tikka marsala pasty, which in England they eat a lot of Indian food as well. It's quite popular, so it makes sense. I had an Italian meatball pasty.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Which it was. I will say the meatballs, good sized meatball, seasoned, the sauce, the pizza sauce, essentially pasta sauce, whatever, was seasoned pretty well. The mozzarella cheese, of course. Give me all the cheeses. The meatballs were a bit on the, I don't want to say bland, but they weren't, the seasonings they used were not very obvious.
Okay.
And I
so you
think
couldn't
maybe
tell it was Italian?
I think maybe it's because those meatballs probably may get used in other dishes.
That's possible.
So they want to keep it bland enough that it can work in several different dishes.
Makes sense.
Would be my guess. And also the meat came off on a bit on the sweet side, which I didn't necessarily care for.
So they probably
did not
used
stop
sweet
me.
sausage.
Yeah, that did not stop me from eating most of it, by any means. And we had with Chauncey and I split a Scotch egg for our appetizer,
Cool.
which
I've
if you've never had a Scotch egg,
I've seen them. They look awesome.
they are really good. And they tend to be huge, so you could take one and split in half and share it with another person.
Yep.
So but yeah, Chauncey got his was like beef. No, it was like steak and onion and
Ooh,
mushrooms, I
that's
think. So it's like almost, like a steak sandwich,
oh, that sounds good.
but shoved into a pasty instead. So yeah.
If you find the name of that restaurant, please share it. So if I ever do
Yeah.
get over to
Right?
Vegas, I know
Yeah.
where to visit and see if they can't ship later on to Wisconsin.
Yeah. I'm
'Cause
pretty sure I'm pretty sure I put it in the vacation chat. I think you just have to go
Okay.
back far enough, I think, to be able to.
Because in Wisconsin, some certain areas they do pasties.
Yeah, the
kinda like
Cornish
that.
Pasty Company.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Mhm.
So, but that was fun. Good food. And at that point, Chauncey and I kind of split off. Because he wanted to go to the Pawn Stars shop.
Oh, sure. See if
He'd been there
lure
before,
them.
but he'd actually been to Vegas for work
Okay.
once before, but because it was for work, he really didn't get an opportunity to wander, but he did get an opportunity to wander over to the pawn shop and to Count's Customs.
Oh,
But he never got
nice.
to do any of the other like Vegas-y stuff like we did this time around. So he wanted to go back to the Pawn Star shop just to say he'd been there again and took some selfies. He said it's actually kind of, if they hadn't been on TV, it would just be another pawn shop in Vegas,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
nobody would give two flips about it. So, and he said that it's unless obviously the old man has passed away,
Mm-hmm.
but like unless like Rick or Chumley is there, it's kind of. He said it's actually kind of sad. Like Chumley, like there's like Chumley's got like his own like candy shop, which Chauncey says
Interesting.
like it's just kind of like it's a thing where you can buy like candy. And
Mhm.
then Rick has his own barbecue joint, but Chauncey said it looked kind of lackluster as well. So
Mhm.
so yeah, it's like if you're a fan of the show, you can go take a selfie outside, say you've been, but whatever. So he did that. I went to hit I wanted to hit some of the vintage clothing shops. I also found this um uh on a side street, this bakery that they just had a sign, one of those folding signs out on the sidewalks, like said like best cookies in Vegas or something. I don't know. Best something in Vegas. And I was like, haha, dessert. Um so I popped in there. And they had like cakes and cheesecakes and stuff. The slices were like the size of your head. And I'm like, oh, I don't have that much room. But they also have their own cookies, and their cookies are on the smaller side. So I would say they're depending on which cookie you're talking about the size of like an Oreo, like just one of the cookies. But what it is you can mix and match, and they just sell it by the pound. So you could get like, depending on which cookie you get like maybe half a dozen for like a quarter, which is the equivalent of like a quarter pound of cookies, which I was able to get like 6 cookies for less than the price of a slice of cheesecake.
That's not
So
bad. That's
yeah, and it also gave me an
pretty
opportunity
cheap.
to sample a little bit of everything. So yeah, I got myself bad cookies, and I can nibble on those. As mood strikes me. And hit up a few of the vintage shops. I was looking for very specific things. Unfortunately, I did not find what I was looking for, to quote you two. That'll come back around later. But the other place I also wanted to hit that was in that neighborhood was a tattoo shop.
Ooh.
Which is
Did
part
you
of
come back with some new ink?
I did. Yes. Yeah, cool Cool Cats or something like that. It's a small chain. They've got like 7 tattoo shops throughout the Las Vegas area, but they are the home of the $10 tattoo, which normally a cheap tattoo is not something you want.
Right, exactly.
Because
Yeah.
cheap usually doesn't mean quality. In this case, they're flash designs is what they are. So they're pre-made designs that any of the tattoo artists can do. And yeah, you take it as is. So if you don't like it, too bad. They don't make changes. They don't do it. It's the size it is. It's the configuration it is. All of that stuff. So you're getting cheap for the sake of giving up creativity. But they got a lot of options, and they've got $10, 20, like 40, 60, 80, 100, like 150, 200 like designs in those different price ranges. So yes,
wow,
I did come home with 2 new pieces of ink actually that are still healing because it hasn't even been a week yet as of this recording. So yeah, but I can post pictures. So I got it's a little airplane, and it's done a little loop-de-loop and made a heart.
Aw, cool.
So and that's on my right arm. And then for those that don't know, on my right leg last year I started I'm just gonna call it a sleeve because I just don't think there's a equivalent name for a leg piece. Where you have like a cohesive design that takes up a large area. Mostly
I call it a sleeve. Yeah.
Yeah.
I call it a
Because
sleeve.
calling it like a pant leg just sounds weird.
Yeah.
So it's a leg sleeve. So last year I started a leg sleeve with various tattoos related to some of my favorite musicals. So I've got Singing in the Rain, which I gladly showed off to Gene Kelly's widow last year. Or was it earlier this year? I don't remember. So I've got a Singing in the Rain. I've got Labyrinth. I've got Les Mis. I have Spam-A-Lot. And I have Hairspray at the moment. So, but when in Vegas, if you're gonna add to a Broadway / musical themed leg sleeve, I think the most obvious choice is Guys and Dolls. So I got a pair of dice.
Sweet. Then what color are said dice?
It's all just black line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Again, basic. But yeah, I can always have color added later if I wanted to. But most of my other pieces are black and white as well. I say black and white, black and skin tone. So there's not really any color for the most part with any of them, with a few exceptions. But yeah. So yeah, that's my little homage to Guys and Dolls added to that. So that was fun. And I ended up meeting up with Chauncey, who found a hole in the wall bar a few blocks away called the Silver Bullet, and it's only a few years old actually. They're only like 3 or 4 years old, but again, it's one of those sections where you can tell it's starting to get gentrified, but it's not quite there yet. So like they don't have like a sign or anything. You just have to know what the address is and know you have the right door. But at the moment, they're decorated for Halloween, like floor to ceiling, like Halloween decorations, like pumpkins and spider webs and various animatronic things that if you walk by them or push a button, it'll jump out and scare you and all that fun stuff. Apparently they go all out for Halloween and then they go all out at Christmas. But these folks are originally from the Midwest, so it's very like that 80s wood paneling feel to it. That if you grew up in the Midwest in the 80s, y'all know what I'm talking about. That god awful wannabe golden oak that just every time I see it, I kind of want to throw up a little in my mouth. But thankfully it was dark enough in there, and there were glowing pumpkins everywhere that it was easy to not look at. But Chauncey had been there making friends with the bartender. It was several drinks in by the time I got there. So I ended up getting a drink myself and wandering around looking at all the decorations and stuff. And they've got a guy in an electric chair, and you can push the button and electrocute him. Which tickled a part of my brain because they didn't have that at American Horrorplex this year. It was not part of the. They did not have a person in the electric chair to zap this year. So finally, I get to zap somebody.
Well, and you could insert a certain baddie or two from Shawshank.
Yes, exactly. Take that, Warden.
Exactly.
So that was fun. And then we decided to go back to the hotel, get cleaned up. They had they'd done the whole saran wrap thing that a lot of tattoo places do, where they just kind of put saran wrap and then tape it in place over your fresh ink. Problem was, it's Vegas, and even in the middle of October, it's 90 degrees outside, so I was starting to sweat, which was causing some of the excess ink to leak out from under the saran wrap. So we're gonna go back to the room. I'm gonna rinse this off and let it properly air dry and put some moisturizer on it and things you're supposed to do. It's I'm not new to tattoos, so I know how to take care of a fresh one, obviously. And we're we went north of the strip last night, let's do south of the strip tonight. We can walk by the Bellagio and see the fountains and all that fun stuff. I wanted to go to the M&M's world, and all that fun stuff. So that's what we did. So we got cleaned up, charged our phones a little, proceeded out, walked south down the strip. Headed south on the strip, you start getting very heavy touristy areas where you have large sections where you've got for Vegas, I guess comparatively to the prices we spent at the Peppermill, cheaper places to eat. So you have your McDonald's, your White Castle, your Panda Express, your Subways, those types of restaurants where if people, they don't necessarily want to either spend a lot or don't want to get out of their comfort zone when it comes to food. They've got those to rely on, but those tend to be clumped together in sections along the strip. So those tend to be very heavy with people. It's also where you have some of your quote unquote souvenir shops. Where you can buy 3 t-shirts for $9.99, and the t-shirt's gonna fall apart the minute you wash it, that type of thing. So you got Vegas showgirls out with their big plumes and stuff, offering to take pictures with people. So it's very touristy, but we had to go that way to see some of the stuff that we wanted to. So we ended up cutting through. We ended up popping into the Paris real quick to because we have this joke, one of many ongoing jokes, from Home Alone. From Home Alone? Yes, from Home Alone. Wherever somebody goes somewhere, we're like, have a good trip, bring back something French. And Chauncey's parents were like, yeah, especially his dad was like, "Have a good trip, bring your back something fresh." So we stopped in the Paris hotel, and we ended up buying a souvenir for one of Chauncey's cousins, uh, on the behest of my mother-in-law. But when we got back, Chauncey got to see his parents because they came down for some medical stuff for his dad. So gave the souvenir to the mother-in-law to give to the cousin, and then gave my father-in-law the bag that says Paris and has a picture of the Eiffel Tower. Like, here you go, here's something fresh.
French, yep.
Oh, sounds fun.
I fulfilled the assignment.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, we did that. And then we got down to the M&M's world, which is right a couple shops over from the World of Coke. Coke place. The M&M's 4 stories. Thank you.
Wow.
Lots of the history of M&M's and lots of M&M's edible products and like home decor and clothing. So if you're a fan of M&M's and or Coke, and or Hershey's, because there's a Hershey's world right across the street, you're golden right there in that section. But I mentioned the office I work in at the school. We have student workers that if they have a class period where they don't actually have a class, they have more like a study hall. They can volunteer to become office workers, and they'll run passes for us. And if we get deliveries via UPS, they'll take them to the teachers they belong to and stuff like that. But we're always like, the staff, we're constantly having like pitches and stuff, and the kids don't get to be part of any of that. So it's like, okay, if I go to M&M's world while I'm in Vegas, what do you guys want me to bring back so I can share with you guys? And they're like, peanut butter. I'm like, okay. So 1.5 pounds of M&M's later, I brought home to share with them today, because I went back to work today, and they have consumed most of it, was a combination of jumbo peanut butter M&Ms, so they're extra large.
Oh wow.
And then regular size M&Ms that have the cookie center, and then the other bag is caramel M&Ms with the pretzel along with the pretzel M&Ms. So depending on what each bag, you're gonna end up with an M&M that's kind of creamy in the middle and another crunchy. So
nice.
But they were very grateful to have someone bring treats for them. Like, here, please. I didn't lug all this back from Vegas for me to eat all of it. So then we crossed the street to go back up because the Bellagio is on the other side, and worked our way back up. We stopped into, I don't remember exactly which hotel it's technically part of, but it's this giant food court, but it's all Italian. And I saw the sign for it as we were walking by. I'm like, oh, I remember reading about this somewhere. And I was like, we need to go in here, because we were maybe thinking of going. We weren't sure what we were going to do for dinner at that point. So I was like, I want to go in here. And immediately it's all like, again, like a food court, like you'd see at the mall, but bigger. And every place you stop to is something Italian related. So there's one that's just wine and beer, and another one that's just cheese, and another one that's just desserts, and another one that's just like fish, and another one that's just pizza, and another one that's just pasta. And I'm like, okay, I need to start taking pictures and video for Nick.
Yeah.
Which I did and shared in the chat. And I wanted to eat a little bit of everything. But we were good. Try not to overstuff ourselves. But Chauncey and I did split a prosciutto and cheese sandwich, which
that
needed more
good.
Cheese, because the cheese you almost couldn't taste. Because the bread and the prosciutto was so it's mostly because the bread and the prosciutto was so salty.
Oh yeah, so you
didn't get any of the creaminess from the cheese.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because prosciutto is, that's salty,
Yeah,
salty.
it's on the salty side, but oh my god, it's so good.
Mhm.
It's so the bread. And we also had deep fried zucchini,
Ooh, yum.
which they
Ooh.
tasted just like French fries, honestly, because the batter they used it
Yum,
made them
yum,
taste
yum.
just like French fries. Um, so yeah, it's really good. And I had a cocktail, and he had an Italian beer. Uh, when in Rome,
Exactly.
kind of. And then we got to the Bellagio, watched the fountain do its thing. And at that point, actually, you couldn't go up the sidewalk anymore because of construction. So I was like, well, let's just go into the Bellagio. So that's what we did. So we walked into the Bellagio. Now, here's the thing, folks, with Vegas. Yes, a lot of the hotels are very visually appealing from the outside and often have stuff to look at the outside. Like at the Venetian, the gondolas, they some of the rat that they take does come outside, obviously weather permitting. Um so you can watch the gondoliers do their thing, paddling the boats and singing and that sort of thing. Bellagio has the fountains, which if you've seen the George Clooney Ocean's 11, you know that that's like kind of the grand finale of the movie, is the guys watching the fountains outside the Bellagio. So a number of the hotels are visually interesting on the outside, but don't be afraid to walk into the hotels, even if you're not staying there, because they want you to come in
Mm-hmm. They
and
want you to
possibly
drop
spend
some
money.
money.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
preferably in the casino, but there's other ways for you to spend money too. The thing with the Bellagio is, yes, the fountains are great. It's fantastic. It's a little crowded, especially right now because you can't. Part of the place where you would stand is construction at the moment. Um, so the same amount of people are trying to fit into a smaller amount of standing room. But once you go into the Bellagio past the check-in desks, they have the conservatory, which is really just a fancy word for indoor garden. But they decorate it. It changes throughout the year with different themes, and I'd have to look at my pictures and video from last time I was there to even tell you what the theme was last time. But right now, or at least as we're just there. It's like this giant fairy garden. So
Oh,
like
cool.
there's it's kind of fall-ish themed. So like there's calming, almost like spa like music, like what you'd hear if you went to a fancy spa, get a massage. There's running water, there's these fairies hanging from the ceiling, there's these animals made out of like reclaimed wood and stuff. They have these giant pumpkins that are real, that are like huge, like what you'd see at Disney. Um, and it's just really cool. Um, but so it was really fun to just walk around and see, like it has a couple different vignettes. So like there's an elk by the water, and there's a waterfall, and there's a fairy there, and then there's another where there's like a little gazebo that they actually have an actual table at one of the restaurants you could reserve it and eat at, and there was actually a couple there eating, um with different flowers of a different color palette. And then there's like a little woodland cottage with some more animals, like a couple of rabbits made out of various natural materials and stuff. It was also a different color palette. So, and that's all free. It just takes your time to walk in there and walk around. But stuff like that is absolutely free to do, and it's really cool, especially because, like I said, they change it. I don't know how many times a year they change it, but if you don't go very often, it can be like a surprise when you walk in and be like, "What's it look like this time?" Um, which was really cool. Um, and so yeah, that was really fun to walk through. Um, and eventually, eventually, we made our way back to our hotel through the crowds and all the fun stuff, and then again crashed. Um, And then Wednesday morning we got up and we got a late checkout, thankfully, because we weren't flying out till late that evening. Which means we got to sleep in a little. Packed up, dropped off our luggage to have them hold it until we come back and get it before going to the airport. Checked out, and we went to Madame Tussauds, which is right there at the Venetian. Which I had actually been to that Madame Tussauds last time I was there, but again, that was in 2008. It has changed drastically since then.
I can imagine.
So other than the location being the same, it is completely different since the last time I was there. So it was quite fun. So of course, Madame Tussauds, famous for their very hyper realistic wax figures of celebrities and people of note. The celebrities you get often vary depending on the location of the Madame Tussauds. There are some that you're going to see pretty much at all of them. Like there is a wax figure of Madame Tussauds herself. That's going to be at every single one. Some of your like really big celebrities are going to be at a good chunk of them. But it tends to, at least part of it tends to cater to the location. So, obviously they just hosted the Super Bowl earlier this year. So a nod to that. They had, Lady Gaga, who obviously performed Super Bowl halftime show a couple Super Bowls ago. Missy Elliott, who has made a Super Bowl halftime appearance recently. There's a section. There's usually a section that's just like actors, usually movie actors, sometimes some singers. They had Taylor Swift. Closest I'm ever gonna get Taylor Swift. So that was fun. Johnny Depp. Folks like that. I think a few of them have been removed because there's some folks that are not in the best light at the moment, as far as their celebrity status for one reason or another. There's a few that the celebrity is still there, but the sign is not.
That's weird.
Which I find interesting. Like, did somebody deface the sign or what? Because they were mad at this particular celebrity? Or they're just like, well, maybe if you don't know who they are, then you don't have to worry about it. I don't know. I don't know if the thought process is there. And then there's usually a sports section. So you had, again, Vegas, famous for things like boxing. So you had Muhammad Ali, Evander Holyfield, and yes, Evander Holyfield is missing part of his ear on his wax figure. Don King, complete with the wild hair. Golf, obviously golf is also very popular in Vegas. Basketball, tennis, so that's cool. Baseball. And then there's a section that's just like Vegas. So you have like the Rat Pack and Stevie Wonder and Celine Dion and Tom Jones. You got Al Pacino in Casino, in the movie Casino. So Bette Midler, folks that you kind of equate with Vegas. Liberace, Siegfried and Roy, may they rest in peace. Elvis, of course. You have young Elvis and then comeback Elvis. You got two versions of Elvis. They have a giant roulette wheel full of chips, and it's like almost like a ball pit, and you climb into it and do like photos and stuff. So I did that. That was kind of fun. Proceeded to wash my hands thoroughly after that. And then they have a bar in the middle of Madame Tussauds about halfway through. And it's themed after The Hangover. Complete with wax figure Zach Galifianakis, which is kind of funny considering he's currently on Only Murders in the Building. But they have a bar. You can buy drinks that are all themed to The Hangover. So Chauncey got a beer, I got a cocktail. I'm not going to repeat the name of my cocktail because it has a not so nice word in it. because The Hangover is a very dirty movie. I've only ever seen the first one, and that's because somebody insisted on seeing it, and I was like, oh, whatever. It was not my choice. And they do have Mike Tyson and the tiger in the bathroom, with Phil Collins playing in the back, which is kind of funny. And then they have a Marvel 4D movie. So it's one of those where you wear the 3D glasses, but then it also like your chair shakes and they'll, splash water on you and smoke and stuff like that. So it's this whole idea of some of the Avengers are at Madame Tussauds and Loki shows up and causes pandemonium, like you do.
Yep.
There is a Stanley cameo, which made me very happy.
Oh, nice.
So we did that. They do have some Marvel related, specific Marvel related wax figures. They have Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, Chris Evans as Captain America. They have a version of the Hulk. They just call it the Hulk, so they don't specify which actor. Spider-Man, again, they don't specify which Spider-Man it is. It's just Spider-Man. But that's cool. Of course, you do have a couple of other Marvel actors, just not as their Marvel characters, because like The Hangover, you've got Bradley Cooper, who's the voice of Rocket, but he's also in The Hangover, and that's why he's there, is because of The Hangover. But still, that's cool. So we got our little Disney tie-in there with the whole Marvel thing, which was cool. And then it was time to really just kind of go home. So we collected our stuff, went to the hotel, went to our hotel, collected our stuff, got a ride, got to the airport, eventually got on our flight home, got home really late Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, slept most of the day. I had to unpack and then repack because I turned around and Friday morning, drove out to Cincinnati for Cincinnati Comic Expo, which is where I've been for the last 3 days, which you remember I went last year because Paul Bettany was there. So this year I was able to be there Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's temporarily relocated because the Cincinnati Convention Center is getting a much needed facelift. So it's temporarily moved to Sharonville, which is a suburb right outside of Cincinnati. They have a very nice convention center. I stayed at there's a Hilton that's technically connected to the convention center. The way they had it though is unless you were a VIP or vendor, you had to go in a specific set of doors, which happened to be at the top of the hill.
Hey.
Which, granted, the hill not terribly steep, but still,
Yeah.
to have to go up a hill while the VIPs get to go in the set of doors is at the bottom of the hill. So I like this convention. I do. This year was a little weird, and I don't know how much of it was the fact that they are in a different location and therefore have to adjust the layout. This convention center is smaller, so they had to scale things back a little, or what. Like the celebrity guest list was pretty darn good. Unfortunately, John Rhys Davies canceled like 2 days beforehand. So I still have not gotten Gimli on my map of Middle Earth, but I did get Faramir, David Wenham, so that was nice. And thankfully Ming Na Wen was able to make it. She was supposed to be there last year and unfortunately had to cancel due to a family emergency, because her parents, I don't know what family had to do with. I know her parents are on the older side, and then I believe she still got family in China, I think. But her parents still live in Pittsburgh. last I heard, they were still running a restaurant.
Oh wow,
So,
cool.
Chinese restaurant. Imagine that.
Nice.
And but being now, she was only there Saturday. Friday, it was a lot of the voice actors were there all 3 days. They had most of the voice cast from the X-Men animated series / X-Men 97. Like Ron Perlman was there all 3 days. As well, I think. But some of them did not show up until Saturday, or were only there Saturday, like being no end. So Friday, it was because it was a traveling day. I got there, checked in, got to got in my hotel room, dumped my stuff, grabbed something to eat. Was able to walk over because the convention itself didn't start till 2:00 anyway. So walked over to check in. First off, the QR code that they sent me did not work.
Well, that sucks.
Oh,
Which,
no.
again, technology, it is what it
Mhm.
is, but still. Second of all, and this was my first time attending this convention as press, so I don't know if this is the norm usually, or if it was just this particular convention this year. They did not have press badges. And instead of just giving me like the standard like 3-day badge to wear, which essentially would be the equivalent, and give me the same access as somebody who purchased a 3-day, they gave me the wristband for the day, which means every morning I had to go and check in and get the wristband for the day.
Oh, that sucks.
That's annoying.
Yes. And I had to explain to them each time the QR code doesn't work. Y'all don't have press badges. You're just supposed to give me the wristband. And they were like, here you go. Whatever. So Friday was really just realizing that was going to be a thing I was going to have to do all weekend, and then doing kind of recon, figuring out where everything, like the layout of where stuff was, and then proceeding to go back to the hotel to chill. I grabbed dinner and chilled, showered, that sort of thing. Star Wars was on TV. Unfortunately, it was the Lucas cut of the OG trilogy.
Yep. I know exactly what channel you were watching. I was watching too.
Yep. I wasn't sure at first until Han went to the where the Millennium Falcon was, and I was like, oh yeah, child, okay, yeah, this is a Lucas cut. All right. Anyway. I will say, being in a hotel that close to the convention center is very nice, because it means you can go back. If you bring your own food and snacks and stuff, you can go back, prop your feet up for a little bit, have a snack, maybe watch a little TV, get away from the hustle and bustle. It's not bad. And then Saturday morning was the busy day, because Ming Na Wen was gonna be there. That's the only day she was gonna be there. So I get up, get dressed, I get breakfast. Thankfully, the hotel came with breakfast. Got breakfast, got dressed, put on my Agents of Shield poodle skirt and my I Heart Coulson shirt, and had my lanyard with my ID badge so that the Koenigs wouldn't yell at me for not having my lanyard. Grab my stuff, my Marvel art piece of the collected signatures on, and my map of Middle Earth for David, and walked over, stood in line, got up, got on my wristband, then proceeded to walk over to where the celebrities are and get in line for Ming Na Wen, which she had a decent line, but she was there. She was moving pretty steadily, which is good. And a lot of people that were waiting in line with me were very excited. And it was quite fun to see where people knew her from or what their favorite thing was. A lot of people, especially girls, Mulan is like the shit when it comes to the Disney princesses. Like, it's Mulan or nothing. So some of them are very excited. That a lot of obviously Star Wars fans, because of her being the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. And obviously the MCU folks, Agents of Shield, very excited. She is super sweet. The woman does not age. She is 60.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Ooh.
She doesn't look it.
No, she doesn't.
By any means. So her,
Mm.
whatever, the MCU money must be like a partial fountain of youth, and like her and Paul Rudd and some others have figured out how to tap into it because she looks amazing for 60. So she was born 3 days before Doctor Who debuted in the UK.
Oh wow.
Oh.
So yeah, she'll be turning 61 next month.
Wow.
Yeah. But yeah, she looks fabulous. Super nice, super sweet. Obviously I didn't get really a chance to talk to her because there was a super long line. And they were keeping her busy. Like she was signing autographs, and then she had her photo op at 12:30, and then her panel was supposed to be right after that at 1. And then she was also doing a photo op with her what's her face that plays Bo-Katan, Katie Sackhoff, who she arrived while I was waiting in line for Ming Na Wen, and Emily Swallow, the armorer. So the three of them were doing a photo op, and then she was also doing a photo op with just her and Katie Sackhoff. So like Ming Na Wen was doing like 3 different photo ops and a panel and still trying to sign for all these people all in one day. I do not know how she managed it, but she did. And that's awesome. So yeah, thankfully I got my signature before she had to take off for a photo ops. I actually had a little bit of time before I had to go get in line for a photo op with her, so I ended up jumping in David Wenham's line and having him sign my map of Middle Earth. He signed right near Gondor. That was nice. Again, he was a very nice gentleman. He's Australian. So and so then I went and waited till they called my group specifically for the Ming Na Wen photo op. Got in line, waited. It's like herding cattle. Got my turn, set the stuff I didn't want in the photo op to the side. I took my Coulson Funko with me. I actually have Agent May as well, but it seemed kind of weird to have Agent May meet Agent May.
Yeah.
She needed to meet herself that, and I'm wearing a shirt that says I Heart Coulson on it. So so I got my photo with Ming, and the two of us are making kissy faces to her, the Coulson Funko Pop. So yes, we Heart Coulson. Oh, that was done with that. So then I was hungry. It was lunchtime, so I went back to the hotel room, dropped off the stuff I did not need to be carrying around anymore, and changed out of my poodle skirt. I really need to add pockets to that thing, because otherwise the only pockets I have are just the 2 little pockets on the denim vest, and those don't really hold anything. So that, and I didn't want to get lunch all over my outfit, so I changed it to pants, so I had pockets. And ate lunch, and then went back to the convention center for to wander a bit more. And then because when in Rome, in this case Cincinnati or a suburb of Cincinnati, you have to go to Jungle Gyms, which I know I've talked about Jungle Gyms before, but this is if Disney owned and operated a grocery store, essentially. Jungle Gyms is almost like Meow Wolf. It's almost unexplainable. It's one of those things where you really have to experience it to understand it. But it's like, if Jungle Gyms does not have what you're looking for as far as ingredients, you probably don't need it. So because it's huge, and they've got an amazing international section broken down by like region and country. So like if you're looking for something very specific, that you can probably find it. Their produce, they've got everything from your basic tomatoes and cucumbers to very unique fruits and vegetables. There's animatronics in the grocery store in different sections. They got a huge alcohol section, not just beer and wine, but liquor as well, which is always fun. There's a bar in the grocery store. You can buy a beer and drink a beer while you're grocery shopping. Like, if that's not the best thing ever, I don't know what is. Because that's exactly what I did. I also got Starbucks too. There's also when in Rome. That's the closest Starbucks I'd been to in a while. So I had the Starbucks first. I didn't want to go straight into beer, but then the Starbucks got satisfied while I drank the beer and grocery shopped. And bought a crap ton of cheese, various cheeses, and some charcuterie meats, and some pasta, and some specialty butter, and some beers that I know Chauncey had never had before, and some stuff for myself that I had never had before, alcohol wise, and some desserts. So a little bit of everything. I got some jammy Dodgers, like you do, and some digestive biscuits, like you do, thanks to the UK section. And Jungle Gyms, I've been there enough times. And the layout does not change. So it's like, I know where everything is. So I know what sections to stop and browse in to see like what products have changed. But I know the overall section is not necessarily changed. So I know where I'm going. But even then, even with the game plan, knowing which sections I want to go to specifically to purchase from, I was still in there for an hour and a half. Just because it's so big. It's like IKEA. Once you go in, you have to go a certain route to get back out. But I think they did that on purpose. I may have learned that from IKEA, actually. So yeah, even an hour and a half in Jungle Chips. Pop out finally with bags of groceries. Thankfully, most of it I was able to just keep in the back of my car. And the stuff like the cheese and stuff I was able to take back in my hotel room and use the mini fridge to keep it cool. And then Sunday, obviously last day, load the car, check out the hotel, walk back over to the convention center, get Sunday's wristband, and then proceed to make sure that there's nothing I missed as far as vendors and the like. Made a few purchases, had a nice little chat with Aaron, who is the creator and wild, and I don't know if this is because he's Canadian, strange mind behind Effing Birds. So if you follow Effing Birds on like Twitter or Facebook or all that, so if you've ever seen Effing Birds or seen somebody share one of the images from Effing Birds, coming soon to our YouTube channel will be my chat with Aaron about Effing Birds and Meow Wolf. Actually, we ended up talking about Meow Wolf as well. But he was super nice. He's Canadian, of course. So yeah, he was fun to talk to. So last passers, purchases, the like, and then it was time to come home. Because the other weird thing, and again, I think this was because of the space being smaller, maybe. There were no fan panels. There were the celebrity panels, and then there was one, like, I think these guys run like a podcast or something that did like a Family Feud type trivia Friday night and Saturday night, but there were no fan panels. No fan run panels. No, like, let's get together and talk about Marvel or this anime that we all love, or like cosplay demonstrations, like here's how you use foam or whatever. It's like even smaller conventions will have panels that are run by the fans, but they didn't have any. That was really weird.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, unless I wanted to go to a celebrity panel, otherwise I was just wandering around the vendor hall and or like the room where the celebrities were. Although Icon was there doing a gaming tournament like they do, raising money for charity. You know, they did have the local 501st and Rebel Legion there, but again, limited. So they didn't have any of their like big displays like a lot of the Star Wars groups have, like, you know, like the trash compactor or, you know, a speeder bike with background behind it. They didn't have the space for that. So they just had a table and some of their signage up. There was no Ghostbusters group, officially, at least. So I think, you know, obviously you got to do what you got to do while your choice space is getting, again, a much needed facelift. But again, I thought it was really weird that there wasn't like they had some after hours programming at like a restaurant that was like down the street a ways, kind of across the street and over from the convention center, but there really wasn't a whole lot in the way of excess programming outside of the celebrity panels, which I just thought was weird. And maybe like feel like maybe I felt like I was missing something, honestly. It felt like there was something missing, and that halfway through the convention I realized that that's what it was. I'm like, there's no fan run panels. So, and I know they put a request out for them, at least I'm pretty sure they did. So I don't know if like nobody submitted any, or if they just decided, you know, we're not going to try to bother to squeeze them into a room somewhere or whatever. I don't know. So yeah. I'll be interested to see if and when I get like the post convention like feedback email. Because I have a few thoughts. Like overall I had fun, and it was great to be able to go, you know, as press, cover it that way. It was nice that the convention center had Wi-Fi, made it easy to post things on social media. But yeah, the issue with the QR code and the whole wristband thing, first world problems for the most part. Yeah, just the lack of like other programming to have stuff for people to do, I just thought was weird. So I don't know if the Cincinnati Convention Center is going to be ready by next year. I don't know how long this refurb is supposed to take. I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Fingers crossed all goes smoothly and no delays.
Yeah, I don't know what the ETA is. I mean, we knew at last year that it was going to be at a different location this year, so, but I don't know exactly when it started and what the ETA is when it's supposed to be done, but hopefully it's done in time for next year, because I think we need to go back to the bigger location so that we can expand back to, you know, the full-size candy bar version of the convention. So this was like somewhere in between fun size and full size. So, but overall, it wasn't bad.
Size.
Yeah, it was snack size. Yeah, overall, it wasn't bad. Again, mostly my complaints were first world problems. The hotel is on the older side, but again, you know, after spending 3 days at the Venetian in Las Vegas, pretty much every hotel was going to feel a little lackluster, I think. But we'll wait and see what happens with the refurb in Cincinnati, and how soon we'll end up back at the convention center, and if things will go back to the usual. But overall, I had fun. I had a fun fall break. Going back to work this morning, it was just kind of like we were all just kind of like, we're back here. But you know, it is what it is, and that's what helps pay for the trips. So gonna work. Obviously, I'll get a little time off for Thanksgiving, and then right after that is GalaxyCon Columbus. So convention season is not over for me yet. So, but I will put pictures up on our Facebook, and then I will try to link as much stuff in the show notes as possible. Especially the vendors that I ended up buying stuff from at Cincy. So many talented people that come up with just some really cool stuff. So it's like, I want to buy it all. I want to support all the independent shop people, artists, creatives, shop local. But yeah, if I had not just come from Vegas, I probably could have. But it is what it is. I didn't even gamble. That's the thing. I didn't even gamble. It was all food. That's what I spent all my money on.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm gonna be thinking about that French toast for a while.
Ooh, yes. It's like, how much for you to slip me the recipe?
Yeah, really. And the kitchen to go with it, and the cook.
Yeah.
Well, if any of our listeners have been to Vegas and maybe want to share some of their tips, tricks about how to have a good time, preferably on a budget.
Places to eat.
Places to eat. I know Shalane and I have been talking about it. Because she's been semi-recently. So she might have a thing or two to say. Or if you went to Cincinnati Comic Expo, tell us what you think about the temporary relocation and what you thought of this year's event. And if you thought it was just kind of like a little something was missing like I did. You can send feedback. Our email is fivishfangirls@gmail.com, or you can go to our website, which is fivishfangirls.com, where you can find the show notes. So that's where you'll find the links and the stuff and the links to the social medias. So I have posted some pictures and video on our Instagram. So, like I said, I will put some pictures up on Facebook as well. And also links to like the Goodreads book club if you want to go do that. And if you want
less than a week away till we switch, so hop over
Yeah.
to vote, please.
Yeah. There's a lot of important voting happening in the next few weeks.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. Book club, in the grand scheme of things, Goodreads book club, lower on the
Lower
priority
on the
list.
but still.
But if you think about it, you can vote early. You can only vote once. It's kind of like that other voting that's happening.
Yeah.
So, or if you want to financially support us, we greatly appreciate it. None of that goes to help pay for my food and or liquor bill at Las Vegas. That was all paid out of my own pocket. Thank you. But things like Zoom, your financial support helps pay for. So you can do that either via Patreon if you become a regular supporter, or Ko-fi, or if you want to buy merch via our merch shop on Redbubble, you can do that as well. So, and we will be back to our regular shenanigans next week as we get ready for Halloween. And if you want to prepare, I see dead people. And with that little cliffhanger, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany Bangle saying goodnight.
This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good evening.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Make note of the color red. Spoilers! Thank you, our Fiveish fam, for joining us on this week's geeky journey. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Stay connected with us on our website, thefivishfangirls.com, and follow us on most social media with @FivishFangirls. Plus, check out our nonprofit, Fangirls Give Back, to see how we're making a positive impact in our community. Until next time, stay nerdy and let the squee continue.